Hey there, I'm the white man from town. And did you know that I'm what some people might consider a weeaboo? It sounds scary, I know, but if I ever was one, it was certainly back in my high school days at the age of 14, when I was formally introduced to anime thanks to Kill la Kill. It was quite the introduction, to say the least, but getting back on track, nowadays I'm more of a connoisseur. Whether a show is bad or good, as long as I find it interesting, I'll watch it in its entirety, to better construct the opinion I already formed on the show in its entirety, based on the first episode. I do this because, as the guy behind the screen you're viewing this video from, my opinions are absolutely based on my feelings and they should be heard by more people than myself. I also consider them to have varying degrees of importance, but what I'm about to talk about is on the higher end of the imaginary scale that's in my head that I want you to see. Unfortunately, my art skills are lacking, so you won't get to see it. Why this topic exactly? It's simple. It hurt my feelings upon the first viewing. And this wasn't just any show. It's a show with me as the main male lead. So it makes me feel a bit better knowing that it was the main female lead who uttered the line that I hope makes you suffer as much as I did when I place it under scrutiny. I shall now proceed to set the scene for you. The show is Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. The episode is 3, and the timestamp is 4 minutes and 1 second. The cause for the unfortunate line that you may have just visited Crunchyroll to hear was thanks to Mother Nature crying, since humans aren't the best homeowners, and it caused our two protagonists to seek shelter. After finding it in the form of a gazebo, the two chat to pass the time until Nagatoro noticed that her uniform had become transparent due to getting wet, and decides to prank none other than yours truly because this version of me is an awkward mess that hasn't gone past my shy around girls phase. She gets my attention, which causes me to look towards her direction, but the promise of a conversation starter was merely a ruse to get me redder than a tomato, or something, because I'd inevitably avert my eyes to her torso that's hosting a piece of undergarment that's now visible thanks to her transparent shirt, which in turn would turn me into a mumbling mess. Everything sounds reasonable, I hope. Bad weather acts as the catalyst for a prank between two would-be lovers. The way I described it, there isn't anything worthy of note. But I left out something. A thing that would string disaster to both the left and right side of your upper compartments. And that thing is exactly what Nagatoro said to me. She said, and I quote, "My uniform's really see-through right now." See-through. Instead of transparent. That's what's got me kicking. Now, look. In the grand scheme of things, I'm just a hater. Because as wrong as I might think it is to say, see-through is something I can accept teens would say when describing something that's transparent. However, as I just stated, I'm a hater, and this phrase is some bullshit. What? It has one less syllable? It's simpler to understand now? Those are two fair points, actually. But I have a counterpoint. A word's conciseness is more important than either of those two things. And here's an example for the former. When a solid is dissolved in a liquid, why is it that we say the solid is dissolving rather than the solid is becoming incorporated into the liquid so as to form a solution? It's because the former is a concise umbrella term that describes all possible interpretations one could use to describe the process of a solid structure being broken down and merging with a liquid, and the latter is one of many interpretations that falls under said umbrella. You could say that a solid is merging, or left, because the solid ain't there no more, but while those two words have less syllables, they're not describing the full event that's taking place. If a solid is dissolving, you shouldn't say it's merging instead, because that could imply the solid is still visible as it combines with the liquid, while stating that a solid is dissolving makes it clear that the solid is breaking down to merge with the liquid to create a new substance. Saying that the solid left to buy milk or something implies that it doesn't exist in the container where the liquid is, which isn't true. The parts that made up the solid are still there, but they've been broken down and fused with the parts of the liquid. If a solid is dissolving, that's all that needs to be said to convey the message that the solid is indeed dissolving. Any other terms like merging or left, which have fewer syllables, aren't going to be as concise as the word dissolving. Now, to explain why see-through isn't as simple of a word as transparent is, to describe a shirt's ability to allow light to pass through itself so the objects behind it can be distinctly seen, let's talk about them. See-through isn't actually as simple as you may think to comprehend, because while it means to, well, see through something, see-through can more specifically mean to see through a facade that someone is putting up in an attempt to deceive you, or to see through a tough time that someone is going through by supporting them. Sometimes, see-through can be taken literally, meaning to see through something with your eyes. But other times, it means to see through people, to see something you can't tangibly look at, like a person's true intentions. And sometimes, it means to support people, which is unrelated to the previous two definitions of the term that at least involves looking at something, literally or not. There isn't a common definition for the term that can make it all-encompassing, but the alternative that I've been pushing, transparent, is. To put it simply, if something is transparent, that means it can be easily perceived, and certain things can be so easily perceived that you can see through them to whatever's behind them. Something being easily perceived can be referring to both tangible and intangible things, like shirts and feelings. And while perceiving something as seeing through something might sound different, just like how people can perceive someone well enough to see through them and observe what's behind their face, we can perceive a shirt well enough to see through it and observe what's behind the shirt. I hope this is starting to make sense, because, ironically, sometimes it's hard for me to say things in a simple, concise fashion. But there's one last point that'll send all doubters into pits of despair. Nagatoro is surprisingly academically competent, so she should know better. I should have led with that point to make this even more concise. Well, sorry for wasting your time, and I'll see y'all next time.